numbers in South where kids companies are based have very high teen pregnancy rates. What do you believe needs to be done to lower it?
I think teen pregnancy is really manifestations of extreme deprivation, and often I see teenage girls wanting to have babies because really they want, as they put it in their own words, something that will love them totally and devotedly, and to have a baby to love you because you're so starved of love is a sad statement about how society is going. So if we want to solve the teen pregnancy problem, we need to meet the emotional needs of these young girls who feel so hungry for attachment. People are casual and sarcastic about it. They say, oh, it's because they want apartments, they want flats, or they want the council to jump them on the housing. It's not really like that. It's much more about needing love and nurture and care.
Yeah. Most of the children you're dealing with come from poor backgrounds. At the other end of the spectrum, I know children who are completely raised by their nannies. One mother was unable to locate her child's nursery school as she had never visited it. She had asked the nanny directions. What do you think of this opulent neglect?
Before I actually set up the two charities that I founded, I used to work with very rich families as a therapeutic worker. And I used to be booked into wealthy houses in Kensington, Knightsbridge and Kings Road to work with the vulnerable toddlers there. I actually saw an enormous amount of neglect and quite a bit of child abuse. I remember children who were being beaten with belts and hurled around the room by fathers. So I don't think child abuse and neglect is only something that happens amongst the poor. I think it's very prevalent amongst wealthy people. The saddest thing I used to see is actually the child that bonded with the Filipino nanny or the nanny that was in the house, and suddenly the mother would decide to sack this individual, or the dad would decide they didn't want this worker anymore. And in effect what they were sacking and separating from the child was the person that the child saw as a mother.
Yeah.
So I think we do need to pay more attention to child abuse amongst rich people.
Yeah, I think it's something that is quite overlooked.
It is completely overlooked. There's quite a bit of sexual abuse as well in households where there are rich children, by relatives, by domestic staff. I do think it's a problem.
In terms of fostering children, people often want the pretty child or the one who shows the most potential. What happens to those maybe slightly older, maybe slightly less attractive, maybe slightly more damaged children who show signs of dysfunctional behaviour? What happens to them? What happens to them?
It's very difficult to foster out children who have special needs or who have difficulties. There are some extraordinary foster carers out there who actually specialize and like children with unique needs. But the truth is that most foster carers and adoptive parents do want a child that is easier to manage. And sadly, there are some foster carers who go into fostering for the money. A real business is developing around fostering, where people are joining private fostering agencies that are paying 4 times the fee that a local authority would pay a foster carer. So it's becoming a right little business. I actually think that we need to completely look again at what we do with vulnerable children. Some children shouldn't be fostered. They need to be with specialist care homes that are very nurturing, of high quality, but not with a foster carer.
How do you approach those children, or young adults even, who are classified as dangerous?
At Kids Company we work with a lot of children who exhibit dangerous behaviour. What I think is children who behave dangerously are often children who have been hurt the most, and the dangerousness is their defensive behaviour. So what you have to do is look past the dangerous behaviour whilst keeping everyone safe, i.e. be realistic and understand that in a split second that child can stab you. They have the capacity, but not get stuck at that and not think this dangerous child, I'm not going to go near them, but go behind that and look for the child who's wounded and try and meet that child. And if you meet the wounded child, their dangerousness will diminish, and that's definitely what's happened with us.
They say that fear of crime is really on the increase. What do you think needs to be done to combat this? Because, well, I don't know which statistics are right, but some say that crime is on the decrease, yet the fear of crime is actually majorly on the increase.
Yeah, I think the crime statistics are hard to capture, because it's true that large numbers of young people in the inner cities don't turn to the police to report crime. So I don't think we've got the real crime statistics. But I also think that we've developed a culture in which adults are scared of children, so they're not coming up with solutions. It's almost like, rather than fearing for the children, they're afraid of the children. And I think that's the wrong way round.
You've said that abused children see the perpetrators doing it all, getting away with it, and it is due to witnesses being continuously intimidated. The police are not seen as potent interveners because the police know who the criminals are, but because the witnesses are told that they'll be shot dead if they go to court, the police are paralysed in actually upholding the rule of the law. In what ways do you think the role of the police needs to change?
What happens in poor neighbourhoods is that witnesses can often be intimidated because the neighbourhood is surviving on the proceeds of crime, i.e. there are large numbers in the neighbourhood who are living through drug dealing or handling stolen goods and so on. The violence comes in this type of illegal trade because you can't control the trade through solicitors and courts. If you don't pay money for my bag of heroin, I can't take you to court. So that's when the violence and the intimidation comes in. And one mustn't underestimate how organised and widely spread and systemic the criminal network around some of these drug dealers and some of these people who engage in violence are. And sometimes people describe them as gangs, but it can be collective of people who have each other's backs. So the problem is, when a witness is about to testify, it's not just that their own life is under threat. The whole community knows where their mum lives, where their sister lives, where their dad lives, and the witness is intimidated, told, if you testify, we'll go around and rape your mum, we'll go around and, burn your house down and so on. So then the individual who's giving evidence is thinking, okay, even if on a personal level I was going to be brave and do this, I can't sacrifice my whole family for this situation. So they then kind of choose silence.
Yeah.
And then the criminal network is empowered by the fact that they're often getting away with it because we have a court system that demands witnesses. And I think we're going to have to rethink this.
Would you change the court system?
I think the court system in this country is absolutely amazing. But I think we're going to have to think of another way of handling these chronically violent criminals who intimidate witnesses.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to think of another way of bringing them to justice.
What are your thoughts on China's one-child policy, with possibilities of there being more focus and attention on the child?
I actually think that's very cruel to those children, because the entire intensity of two parents is focused on one child. So all the aspirational ideas of parents and what they want out of their children is focused on one child. So if the parents are good and they keep good boundaries and they don't force their psyche onto the child, then that's a good thing, although it's a bit lonely for that child. But I think it's quite a bit of pressure for a child to carry.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on celebrities with rainbow families adopting from Africa, bringing them back here, and taking children out of their cultures and bringing them up in a different one?
I always hope that celebrities are doing it with good intention, but it does beg the question, why, for example, if they care that much about that child, they don't pay for someone in that culture to nurture and bring up that child in that environment, you know what I mean, in the environment that they are in, and get the best for that child's life. I think it's a complex choice. But if those celebrities are adopting those children for absolute reasons of love, then I'm okay with it.
Thank you. You've spoken about the assumption that behind every child is a responsible carer who is going to actually take that child to the appointment. And how if you look at child abuse statistics, 90% of children who are being abused are actually abused by their carers or family members. I found this a shocking statistic.
Yeah. What happens, it's very interesting. I worked for a while at the NSBCC Child Protection Unit, and it was part of my work experience when I was a student. And my role was to be behind the one-way mirror and, along with the team, assess when a sexual offender was in the room and whether they could be rehabilitated with their child. And whereas prior to that, I would have possibly thought of sexual offenders as people who were crossing the moral boundary, what I now think is that as a result of that experience, realize it's much more complex, because 90% of people who abuse children have been abused themselves. That doesn't mean that 90% of people who have been abused go on to abuse, but of those who do go on to abuse children, they themselves have been abused. Often abuse creates a cycle of damage. Sometimes the damage is exercised towards outsiders, and sometimes the damage is exercised towards the self. So you get people who cut themselves, people who continuously attempt suicide. So abuse has catastrophic consequences if people don't get help. And sadly, it means that often child abuse runs in families.
You've said that what you'd like to see happen is that we mobilise to protect vulnerable children when they're being abused, rather than lock them up in our prisons. In the past, you've advised Labour, as well as helped David Cameron with welfare reforms. Which party would you like to see win the election? And which party shown the most support in the work of Kids Company and the most potential in helping underprivileged children in the future?
I, as an individual, have only one party, and that's the children. So I'm absolutely accountable to the children, and I don't follow any political party or any political theory. I'm just waiting to see which of these political parties is going to come up with the best package for vulnerable children. And I have to say that I do think all of them are avoiding the issue of child abuse and the fact that our child protection system is completely dysfunctional.
So far hasn't really been brought up.
No, it's very interesting. Politicians totally avoid this subject. And they avoid it because the truth is, the child abuse behind closed doors doesn't merit the politician's interest. The public don't really notice these children until they become so disturbed that they start impacting the quality of the life of the voter. And then politicians are immediately mobilized, but they're mobilized for the wrong reason, because they're worried about the voter, and one should be worried about victims. But the truth is, this child who commits the crime was a victim many years before, but no one protected him or her because he wasn't worth, or she wasn't worth, anyone's vote. So I'm afraid I'm a bit sarcastic about political intentions, and I have yet to see the political vision to deal with child abuse and child neglect in this country. I haven't seen it yet.
If you could ask the politicians one question about their future plans for the children, what would it be?
I would ask them, do you have the moral courage to do what it takes to ensure that 1.5 million children in this country are afforded the protection they deserve?